Okay, it's recording now. Okay, so let's start. Hi guys, my name is Don. I'm a second year at UCLA. I'm also the co-chair with Kevin for the ASDA UCLA pre-download committee. And my co-lecturer today will be Michael. Why don't you introduce yourself, Michael?
Hey guys, I'm Michael, and I'm a D1 at UCLA, and we're representing UCLA ASDA, as shown above here, and we're part of the pre-dental group. I'm the lecturer for the group, and yeah, let's get started.
Excellent.
So a little bit about me. That's my Instagram handle down there at mzowtown, if you want to follow. And this is my transition from baby form to a dental student. So on the right here are also some of my interests. I like playing video games. Shameless plug for that. I play Fortnite. So if you want to add me, let me know. I play tennis and I like to listen to hip hop. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Okay, so this is my slide. These are basically what I like. So I really like working in the lab. I think lab is one of the most fun part about dental school. And I also like taking pictures. As you can see on the denture picture, I've been trying to get better at taking pictures. I also like solving Rubik's Cubes. I don't know if you guys know, there's like a big community out there about solving Rubik's Cubes as fast as you can. So that's my hobby. And on the bottom right, I also made, because of this quarantine, we don't have gym. So I made like weights using cements. I actually like poured up cement, like how you pour up a dental cast, and made some weights. I put that there. And the last picture on the bottom left is, what do you guys think that is? It's my favorite snack of all time. Yep, it's Vova ice cream. It's so good. Okay, next, okay, let's go. Okay, so what is the dental admission test? You can start from the basics. It's a standardized exam that you have to take as a requirement to apply to dental school. And you might ask, like, what's the point of the test? It's one way for schools to evaluate everyone on a level playing field, because GPAs, they mean different things from different schools, right? Like a GPA from Harvard versus another regular college would mean different things. So DAT is a good way to level everyone out. And when is the test offered and where? They're offered at Prometric testing centers, and it's actually offered year round. You can pretty much choose any day you want to take. Yeah, so in terms of COVID updates, we looked it up, and it seems like all the testing centers will be closed until at least May 1st, and then after that, they'll announce what's going to happen. But I think that's the most up-to-date update we have about this. We color-coded for the rest of the slide presentation. We color-coded each subject, so it'll be kind of easier to recognize. It'll be a little more organized. So yeah, these will be the color coding for each section. Okay, scoring, it's out of 30. And how it's usually presented is in terms of the academic average, total science, and PAT, perceptual ability test. So if you break it down, academic average is actually an literal average of the 5 sections except for PAT. So bio, chem, OChem, reading, and math, it'll be average of that. The total sciences are also based out of the 3 sciences, but it's not an exact average like the academic average. I don't really know how they calculate it, but it's based on the 3 scores. The perceptual ability test, it's its own score. Yeah. So before you guys start, some of the questions you guys should ask yourself. What is my goal? So what is your goal for score-wise? And that will also depend on where you want to go. How long do you have? What will I use? Study materials. What is your exact study plan? How are you going to study each section? Oh yes, and so what is your general study plan? And then get more specific in how you're going to study each section. Next one. So the first question, what is my goal? What is the DAT score that you would like? So first, do research into your schools that you want to apply to. Look at the average DAT. And my recommendation is try to go for the average, if not higher. Obviously, if you don't score like the average score, maybe a little lower, that doesn't mean you can't apply. that's just the average, but to be safe, it's better to go for the average or higher, right? As an example, for our school, class of 20, Michael's class, the D1 class, the average GPA is 3.77, and DAT is 23 AA, 23 TS, and 22 PAT. The average, just to give you context, the average score of all test takers in 2017 was almost a 19, and the average admitted GPA for all dental school is 3.55. And average admitted DAT for all schools is around 19 to 20. But we recommend you aim for 21 or higher. And last point I want to make here is that a great thing about DAT is that if you have a low GPA, it's a great way to compensate for that and boost your application by getting a high DAT score.
I also want to mention
Yeah.
Our UCLA class, don't let these numbers freak you out, because
Yes.
first of all, 50% of us are also below that, above, and this is abnormally high among dental schools. So you'll see averages for admitted students being around like 20.5.
And so continuing from that is, Michael, did you make this slide?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you just talk about it?
Yeah, so this is something I found that I think is nice to know. The ADEA, which makes the application for dental schools, they said that a 3.3 GPA and higher is expected for most programs. And things that can kind of factor into this GPA is unique situations such as necessary full-time work or family obligations. And also improvement over time is really important. So I know we're talking about the DAT here, but I thought this would be important to mention because GPA that increases over time is more competitive than something that decreases over time, even if the overall GPA is the same.
Good point. And just to make some motivation here, if you aim for the stars, you'll reach the sky. So try to aim for a score higher than like the school you want to go to. Maybe aim for like a 23, and maybe if you don't get that, you'll still get like a 21. So try to aim high. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, so
yeah, your turn.
Yeah. How long do I have? So this is a big question that a lot of people ask. You typically want to give yourself around 2 months of dedicated time. So what does dedicated time mean? It's like time that you are focusing mainly on the DAT and not during this time trying to handle a full-time job, a full list of courses. That's really hard to balance, and people do it, of course, but it's definitely going to take a toll on your physical health, mental health. So if you can, block out around this amount of time to dedicate to the DAT specifically. And this also depends on like what you know in terms of general bio, general chem, OChem. And for example, I really regret like cramming this all in at the end, but it was near my application time. So I did this in 4 weeks. What I did was I had classes, but right when midterms ended, I put all my classwork away and just studied the DAT. So that I got kind of screwed on the finals, but I was able to score well on the DAT, and that kind of offset the time that I was not putting into my classes. But I don't recommend this. I recommend using like summer break or winter break to study for the DAT and just take it right after that break ends. And Dawn, your perspective?
Yeah, so also the timing, how long you decide to use will depend on, we generally recommend 8 weeks, but it would also depend on, I guess, your own knowledge of the prior knowledge of the material from your university. If you're like not a bio major, if you're like a English major or something, maybe you should go for 8 to 10 weeks. But if you're a bio major, you're very familiar, you don't have to. Depends on what your comfort level is in terms of knowledge. It also depends on your speed, how fast you generally study, and what your goal will be. So Michael, he's Michael's a very smart guy. He studied for 4 weeks and he was able to score one of the highest in the country. Imagine how much better he would have done if he took like the same time as I did. I'm more mortal, so I took 10 weeks and I did well, but I took much longer. Yeah. I felt like 8 weeks was a good enough time. I felt like after 8 weeks, it felt a little too long for me. So we recommend generally 8 weeks.
Okay, so in terms of resources, we're going to go over this, but really the meat of our information that we're giving you is like our study schedule, our study strategies and schedules. So you can really take away some important points here and there to fit into your own study plan. In terms of resources, I'm sure you've heard of quite a few of these, but yeah, we have them color coded here. The color coding is for which resources tackle which subjects the best. So right here we have Cliff Notes, AP Bio highlighted above, and it does a really good review of all the information, but it does lack some information in anatomy and taxonomy. So Cliff Notes was the only thing I used, and on my actual DAT, I got 3 questions that were anatomy specifically, and I just had to completely guess for those. So I would definitely recommend using DAT Bootcamp bio notes or Ferrali's notes to supplement that. But Cliff Notes does a great job of like summarizing most of the information you need to know. DAT Bootcamp and DAT Destroyer. Bootcamp's an online thing that really covers everything really well. And DAT Destroyer is, if you think about it, it's like just a book of practice questions. So if you like practicing and learning that way, I'd recommend using that. If you have any questions about any of the other resources here, just send a message in the chat. Lastly here, Chad's videos is completely free and does a great content review of all the subjects. So not PAT or Gen Bio, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just those math and the chemistries.
Okay, the math and the chem.
There's also physics, but we don't have physics.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Like, really quick, do you happen to know who wrote the DAT Bootcamp bio notes?
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So okay, yeah, shameless plug, another one. I wrote the DAT Bootcamp bio notes, so I don't know if you wanna, if you guys have
you
any
guys should check
questions
it
about
out.
that.
It's very
Yeah.
comprehensive.
To give
Yeah.
you, basically, Michael scored so well that DAT Bootcamp asked him to work for them.
Thank you for that, Kevin.
I think Kaplan's pretty good. I think it covers everything in a very shallow surface, but it covers everything really fast. So I think if you want to go over the whole material, get like a basic foundation, Kaplan's a good start, but definitely not enough.
Okay, so we did a quick price comparison for you guys because there's a lot of questions about what am I paying for each resource. DAT Bootcamp is $500 for 90 days, covers everything, content review and practice exams. DAT Destroyer is just practice problems, but they're really difficult and they attack all the subjects really well, hence DAT Destroyer. And that's $200 total if you buy the Gen Chem, OChem, the one on the left in the picture, along with the Math Destroyer. And these are the numbers. So if you want to write it down for later use, it'd be helpful.
I remember when I took it, DAT Bootcamp was like 130 or something. Now it's like astronomical. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, another motivational code. It's not about what equipment you have, but what you do with it. So it's less about exactly which material you use. It's about what you do with them, right? So from here now, we're going to talk about specific ways to study, just study in general and also each subject specifically. But just use this representation as a reference. Don't think this is like the code. Everyone studies differently, but there isn't a magic strategy. But I can tell you the best strategy is hard work. So it's less about the materials, but more about what you do with them. Okay, so what is my plan? That's the next question. So this is talking about like more of a general study plan. This really depends on everyone, but we just put it here just for consistency. So what I like to use is general model of I first study the material, and then when I study the foundations, study the foundations, I make study notes, sort of like paraphrasing like each chapter as I'm going. So I have it on a separate notebook, right, for bio, chem, and OChem, and so that later on, after I'm done studying, I need to review the material. Then I would just come back to the notes, right? The notes has all the material in it. I just paraphrase it into much more concise, right, than like a textbook. So I'll read those notes over and over for review. So I'll study the foundations, take notes, and then review the notes, and then I'll practice questions. For example, PAT generators for PAT, reading passages for reading comp, and bio maybe destroyer and whatnot. And especially for like bio and chemistries, I would take notes of the wrong questions that I get, just so that I don't, I can review them later and I can really drill all my weaknesses like really solidly in my head. So I put them down on index cards, like for example, question on front and answer on the back. And I'll review these wrong questions now and then, maybe every other week or something like that. And then review your wrong answers. And as you do that, study your notes again, right? So a common theme is repetition, right? I put that there because I think repetition is probably the most important thing about studying the DAT. Like just because you study the foundation one time, you understood everything, doesn't mean it's gonna stick with you for the next several weeks. Yeah, it's kind of like a muscle, right? Your brain is a muscle. You have to exercise it. It's not like you're just typing it in, right? Next slide. Okay, and then you want to plan month by month. You want to just get an idea how much you want to accomplish each month, right? If you're doing a 2-month schedule, how much you want to get done the first month, and then the second month, and then you want to narrow it down more week by week, how much you want to get done each week, and then day by day, right? So one good way to do that, like for example, you can get like Destroyer, for example. I think there's like 600 questions or something like that. I don't quite remember. And you can divide the number of questions by month, weeks, and days, right? So you can know how many questions you have to do per day to go through the material maybe once or maybe twice by a certain time, right? So do this and have a rough outline of your study plan, right? But all this also depends on, how much can you accomplish per day? You know yourself that well, and whether or not you want to study one subject and like study all that first and then next subject, or do you want to study multiple subjects at once interchangeably, So take all these factors into account and make a plan, a rough plan, and try to follow it. But do understand that you will most likely adjust the plan as you go, because that just happens to everybody. You can't 100% predict the plan, like an ideal plan, but you should have a plan before you start. Okay, and next slide. Okay, so now more specifically, how to study each section. So general biology, in my opinion, is probably the most important section. You'll be learning a lot of life sciences, biology and stuff like that in dental school, right? So I think if I had to rank all the sections, Gen Bio is probably number 1, and maybe reading call be number 2. So general theme about this section when you study it is study it in terms of covering as many topics as possible rather than going too deep into each topic, because the DAT is not a really difficult test, but it does cover a lot of information. So especially for general biology, try to use multiple resources. So I used probably like maybe 5-6 different resources, just because each study resource gives you a little bit different, it covers a little bit different amount of information. Like for example, like Cliff Notes covers bio pretty well, except for taxonomy and anatomy, right? Other study materials will probably cover those. So use multiple resources. And for some examples of study materials for bio will be as foundational learning step, you can use Cliff Notes, it's pretty good. Bootcamp Bio Notes, Michael's Notes, pretty good. And after that, if you want to dive more in detailed, you can use the Bootcamp Bio Academy. I think those are videos, right? Is that video? Yeah.
Embedded videos into textbook form.
Okay, so there's
yeah.
videos for textbook. Yeah, so it's very comprehensive. And for Atlas Bio Notes, you can find that online, I think on student.network or something. And it's almost like a textbook. It's like almost like 100 pages, and it's very comprehensive. Back then when I took in 2016, Michael's notes weren't around, so I used Atlas's notes. And after that, after you've done the foundations, you should take notes, right? Paraphrase everything into a concise, into your notebook, right? So you can review that. So you don't have to go back to Cliff Notes again and read the entire thing again. You can review your notes, right? So go through the material again. So you'll be going through it for the second time, repetition. And then after that, you should start practicing questions. So as you practice questions, you're gonna learn as you practice too, because the questions you get wrong, you learn from that, right? So for questions, try to have not just one resource of questions, but multiple. For example, I bought DAT QVault just the bio section as an additional practice, just because I wanted some more practice from a variety of resources. Destroy has a lot, Bootcamp has a lot, use them as well. And make sure, I mentioned this before, but make index cards of the wrong answers and review them. You can add some supplementary information as well. If you feel like you're weak in that particular area, go back to your notes and add it to your index cards. Yeah, but also another thing is you could also add some answers that you got correct, but you got it correct not because you got it correct because you took an educated guess, right? Maybe you knew the question 70% of the question and you got it right. So even though you got it right, you're still like not fully understanding every single choice, right? So be honest with your understanding, go back to those questions and review them too. Gen Chem, yeah, so basically Gen Chem, OChem, they're not that bad compared to bio. So use Chad's videos. He covers pretty much everything that's on the DAT, not too much, not too little, pretty much just enough in my opinion. And what's nice is his videos are free. I think there is an advanced like pro subscription, but I don't think it's necessary. I haven't tried it, but he has free videos that covers all the topics in chemistry and OChem.
You can tell he's pretty cool because of his shirt.
Yeah. He's also a very cool guy. When you watch his videos, just like bio, take notes, summary notes. You don't have to go back to all the videos again and watch it again when you review. And he has little quizzes with each video, so take them as a review. You could also try using DAT Bootcamp chemistry videos or the Organic Chemistry Tutor on YouTube. For Orgo, I would recommend drawing out mechanisms at least one time out of your memory, because it just helps you. It just makes things come to you faster once you do that. I know on the actual exam, the mechanisms they don't require to write out the mechanisms. But if you're able to write out the right mechanisms, you're able to go through these questions a lot faster. And then after that, it's just practice, right? Chemistries are mostly just, practicing questions, getting used to maths and reactions and everything, right? I would recommend spending a lot more time on bio, because chemistries are generally, I think, not too difficult, at least for the DAT. Yeah, next one. Reading comprehension. Oh, yeah, it's your turn.
Yeah. So for reading comprehension, there's mainly two goals that you kind of want to focus on, and that's increasing your reading speed and finding the best strategy to approach the reading section with. So if you kind of group these two goals in your mind, that'll help you a lot for tackling the reading comprehension section. In terms of increasing reading speed, just reading every day helps a lot, maybe something you enjoy. But if you're reading scientific articles, things that will be more similar to what you'll see on the DAT, that'll help even more. There's some things out there about like how to speed read, how to increase your reading speed. I didn't use those specifically. I just read an article a day, and that helped a lot for my focus, especially during the exam, because when I'm reading a bunch of words, I'll like unfocus and like zone out. So this helps a lot. Yeah, and if you want to, you can summarize each paragraph into a few words, and that kind of ties into strategy. So passage mapping down here, we'll skip to B on strategy. How that works is you'll write down a word or two about each paragraph on the reading comprehension section, and then answer the question so that you have a word to kind of map back to in the passage. And that's hence passage mapping. So that's why we say up above, summarize each paragraph into a few words while you're reading that scientific article or whatever else. So A down here is direct approach, and that's just reading the passage and then answering the questions, not really referencing back to the passage too much, because that'll take a lot of time, but just like try to get all the information in your head and then hitting those questions. C here is search and destroy. So I didn't use this specifically, but how it works is you look at the questions that they have, kind of skip past the inference questions, the analytical questions, and whatever questions just ask you for like a word or two, you tackle that question and go back to the passage searching for that word to help you answer the question. And then later, you'll hit the inference and analytical questions. And this helps a lot with, if you're feeling like you're strapped on time, you might want to implement this strategy. It might help a lot. And our last advice for you is mix and match strategies. So you can take little things from A, B, or C here and kind of mix them. And there's a lot of stuff online you can search for on how people approach the reading comprehension section, but it all boils down to what strategy works for you the best. So if you like one of these already and you don't want to try out the other ones, just go with that. But if you're feeling like your strategy could be better, try a different one. And these are some that you might want to write down if you're taking notes right now to tackle. You can always ask some questions. Yeah.
I'm gonna add something real quick.
Yeah.
So for you guys, I want something you guys to recognize is that when you're taking the DAT, you physically have to click to each question. So one thing to be mindful of is that doing these different strategies are great, but also like you will spend time clicking back to questions as well. So I think what Michael said was perfect and on point, but my own personal opinion was I just try to go through each question just in case I ran out of time later. So like search and destroy, that's what I did. I'm not a strong reader, so I literally saw the question and I tried to find the answer in the passage. And then hopefully by the end of that section of questions, you kind of have a general scheme of how the passage is built and where you can find your answers more efficiently. But that's just my own 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next.
Yeah. Okay, so for the PAT, our advice is to practice a little bit every day instead of cramming your practice altogether. And how you can do that is through PAT generators that DAT Bootcamp has. I think it might be available in the free version of DAT Bootcamp. And then PAT Booster is something that's really nice if you feel like you're struggling on the PAT. That's a resource you can use. There's the price tag right there. But yeah, so at first you want to take your time and analyze what will help you solve the questions in each section of the PAT the best. And we have some techniques in later slides, but just remember, if you find something that works for you and gets you a higher score, just go with that. Yeah, so in terms of timing, it's 90 questions for 60 minutes. The cube counting is quite fast, and there's these things called raw keyholes that we'll show you later that they take forever, and you never know really what's the right answer. So those are the type of questions that you just want to pick one and move on. I think I got like 4 raw keyholes on my exam, and I just put down an answer, moved on, because they're kind of a time consumer.
Let's move to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a pace.
Okay. So this is the PAT section. These are the 6 sections. And like as a dentist, you're going to be looking at x-rays and stuff that you'll have to convert 2D images to 3D objects. And that's kind of what the PAT is going to be testing you on. And our first section here is angle ranking. These are some strategies. So Don, do you want to talk about your favorite one here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So my favorite one here is rapid eye movement. For me, so that is basically like you look at an angle, corner of the angle, you look at it really carefully, and then if you want to compare with another angle, you look at that angle, and then you quickly move back your eyes between the two corners of the angle. And if you're lucky, you might feel like intuitively that one's bigger than the other or one's smaller than the other. That's useful when you when it's not like it's that obvious.
Yeah, and
it just worked really well for me.
Okay. So number 1 right here is finding the obvious ones first and then eliminate choices. So we have an example on the next slide to help you with that. But one more strategy I want to mention is which one is closer to a right angle. You can use right angles as like a reference point, and questions that have angles that are close to that right angle will be a lot easier because you can use that to reference to your other examples. So here's an example question. Why don't we give you guys a little bit of time to just ruminate about this one?
Yeah,
you can type in the chat
your
answer.
We'll tell you the answer in 30 seconds or a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the answer is B here. So
most people got it. Good job.
Yeah. So something you can do here, what I mentioned before, is eliminating 2 of the answer choices. So just pick something in the answer choices that is being compared twice. What I mean by that is 4 and 1 here in A and D have a certain setup. 4 is smaller than 1, and then B and C, 4 and 1, 1 is smaller than 4. So on the left will be the smallest angle, on the right will be the largest. And if you look at 4 and 1, you can kind of tell that 1 is smaller than 4. And if you go with that, you can eliminate answer choices A and D, and now you have B and C. So then you look at 2 and 3. And this method of tackling it reduces a lot of time of you like going answer choice by answer choice by answer choice. And here 2 is smaller than 3, so the answer here is B. Okay, so for keyholes, some tips we have for you is working backwards from the answer choices one by one. So looking at A, B, C, D, E, and crossing off answers that do not fit. A lot of the shapes will have like 2 answer choices that are very similar. So you can cross off like 3 that just don't look like it. And training yourself to notice small differences between those 2 really close answer choices will help a lot. So,
yeah, and you can see in this example, right? You see the 2 overlapping lines below relativity word, right? So there's
on
like
the top right, yeah, of the slide.
Yeah, below the green check mark, that one, there's like a space, right, between the big bar and like the smaller bar right next to each other, space. But you might think there's no space. You might think the edges are overlapping, but it's not. So like little things like that you have to notice.
So this
and
is
don't waste time on rocks.
Yeah.
Skip it and come back to it later because it's near impossible to solve them.
Yeah. Down here is example of rock. It just has a lot of faces here.
Yeah.
Okay, so for top front end, I don't want to explain too much into depth because you can go into a lot here, but basically on the left side, you'll have a top, front, and end view. And one thing to note is that the end view is actually the side view. So that's kind of confusing, but it's something you'll pick up the more you practice. And dotted lines are things that you'll see past the current face that you're looking at. And then solid lines are things that you see while you're looking at it. And the answer here is, what did we say it was?
I think it was
Did we say it was
C.
C? Yeah, so the
Yeah,
answer
C.
here is C for the top view.
Okay,
yeah.
next.
So in terms of pattern folding, one thing to remember is that these patterns fold away from you into the screen. So that might confuse some people at first and just throw them off. So here are some examples they can kind of look at right now. But another tip is looking at one or two edges at a time. So instead of just trying to tackle the entire thing all at once, look at one or two faces, one or two edges. For example, the bottom one, the two black squares are on opposite sides if you fold the cube down. So the answer can't be D for sure, or C, if that makes sense. Because D, the two black faces are next to each other, and C, the two faces can't be opposite of each other, or A.
Yeah,
So
basically, if you can't imagine the whole thing fold three-dimensionally and exactly visualize it three-dimensional shape, just look for like edges and like see how the edges, which edge connects to which edge, which side connects to which side, and eliminate choices.
Yeah. Okay, hole punching is one of the easier sections, and you want to use symmetry. One thing is, okay, so the first strategy you want to use is folding backwards from the last result to the beginning one. What that means is folding from here, the right picture, to the left picture on the top. And knowing where the hole punches can be is really helpful. So here on fold 2, you can see where the gray outline holes are. Memorizing where they are will help a lot. And then from there, folding back from the right here to the front will help you with the answer a lot. Yeah. Here, cube counting goes by really fast. You just count layer by layer. What I mean by that is you want to choose a starting point. If you always want to start from the left and go to the right, or start from the right and go to the left, just pick one, and you want to hit the first layer first. So from left to right, you count this cube, this cube, this cube, this cube going to the right, and then next layer, count these cubes first, and then this cube. Next layer, count this cube. And then once you write down all the sides for how many cubes each side, how many cubes have each side facing outwards, you'll be able to solve the end question. And
Basically,
sorry I'm going through this kind of fast.
Yeah, basically imagine the whole stack of cubes sitting on a table, right? And then you just dump paint over it, and you imagine which cubes have how many sides have paint on it. Like which cubes have 2 sides paint on it or 3 sides paint on it and stuff. Next one, this one goes like pretty fast, so yeah.
Okay, onto the quantitative reasoning section. Really going back to the basics is the long way, but you'll hit everything. Bootcamp QR videos hit all the formulas and how to use them really well. If you just want to look up cheat sheets because you know your math from before, that's also a way to do it. But after that, it's all practice. So Math Destroyer is really good. DAT Bootcamp has really good practice exams. I personally only use DAT Bootcamp. I didn't use any other resources except AP Cliff Notes, and that just like had all the information that I needed. But if you want to use additional practice questions, you can grab other resources. And yeah, there's certain like question types. So if you can remember how you would solve it previously, when you get to the exam, you'll save a lot of time just knowing what question type you're tackling. What I mean by that is like, if you know this is going to be a question about comparing angles or like the hypotenuse, then you can immediately pull up those formulas in your head and then solve the question really fast. And then Don?
Yeah, just reiterating that repetition is very important. I think that's like the common theme for pretty much studying for any standardized exams. Yeah, make sure you study the materials more than one time. Even if you understood it the first time, go over it again. I would recommend going through the materials at least 2-3 times for them to somewhat stick, but more the better. I actually went through Destroyer boot camp twice, and I thought that really helped. But that's also because I had a lot of time. I had 10 weeks. So yeah, repetition, important. And some difficulties to foresee. Okay, so you will never feel 100% prepared because there is just too much material that's going to be covered. So like I felt like by 8 weeks, I felt pretty good, but obviously I wasn't feeling like I'm gonna get everything correct. I felt like, I felt pretty prepared, but I was forgetting stuff as I'm studying. But I think that's normal. That happens to everybody, and just warning you that that's gonna happen to you too, and it's okay. As long as you're following the plan, and you're studying a good amount every day, just trust the process. You're not gonna feel like studying on certain days. That's just happens to everyone. You can burn out because you're dedicating almost 2 months into studying every day. I recommend taking maybe a day off at least per week, day or two, to not study, so that you can do stuff that you can to recharge. Like our willpower is limited. You need to recharge, and get good sleep, please. If you have a really hard time getting yourself to study, there's a video online called "How to Study When You Don't Want to" by a med student that was useful. And I said this before, but your initial study plan that you make for yourself, you're gonna adjust it inevitably. So don't be too stressed out if you're not like following it to the T, but try to still have a good plan to give you a good framework for the period. And what to do before the test, we recommend limit your studying time or just don't study. Rest, do something that keeps you positive, do something to relax. Not only because studying the day before that makes no difference in your outcome, but also if you have a bad test that day, if you do a practice test, you have a bad score, you might be negative on the next day. You don't want that to happen. You want to go into it positive and confident. And also you don't want to throw it, so it's gonna be a very stressful day when you take the test. So you don't want to make it more stressful by having things go wrong, right? So try to visualize how the next day will go, the day before, and also look ahead what might go wrong and prepare for it, right? Make sure you have everything figured out, like transportation, how you're gonna get there, what to eat in the morning, when to wake up, your morning routine, and what to bring to the test, what you're gonna do in between breaks and everything, right? Are you gonna take breaks, or how long of a break you're gonna take, and stuff like that too. And Michael?
Yeah, I just wrote, tell your parents you love them.
Because you might not make it out alive, clearly.
Okay, we're just messing with you.
Michael used to do that every day, dang it.
Okay, so now we got through all the presentation. Oh, thank God. Okay, so now we have some review questions for you guys. Just like a few questions just to get some engagement going. So Michael?
Yeah, the first question is, what is the average admitted DAT and GPA for dental schools?
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, people got answers immediately. Wow. Okay. Question number 2. Which of the following is not a reading comprehension strategy?
Damn, you guys are good. Like
Nice.
coming like this.
They're listening.
I believe it's cumulative. And which of the following is true? Yeah, this is a long one. Give you guys more time. Yep. Okay. Everyone got it. The choice. Actually, can you go back?
Yeah.
Yeah. The choice of study materials. It's not like the key thing that makes a difference in scores is how you use them. And biology is best studied in breadth, not depth. And studying a material one time is not enough. You got to go through it at least twice. Repetition is the most important thing. And PAT is more about practice and less about techniques. Techniques do help. You should, when you first start studying for PAT, you should take your time with each question. Don't time yourself. Analyze each question. And if you can, figure out your own techniques. Come up with your own techniques. And later on, when you're like practicing for tests, you should time yourself because pacing in PAT is very important. but it's ultimately going to come down to practice. The more you practice, the better you're going to get. Dedicated study time period means you study without any other commitments. Which of the following is not correctly matched? Exactly, long-term potentiation. I believe it's about 4.5 hours. Okay, that's easy. Yeah, so math, calculus is not covered. I think it's about algebra, geometry, and maybe pre-calculus or something like that, right? Okay, so we are done. So thank you for bearing with us. Now we will take some questions if you guys have.
Don, do you want to do it the same way we did it last week, where we had them raise their hand?
No, I think just type it in chat. I think it's faster. Because we can just answer it like right away if you type it in the chat. Can you go back to that slide? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don,
slide before this.
Provide some of my own tips that you guys mentioned.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing that Don mentioned was like practice, practice, practice. That is definitely true for the PAT. One thing that I wanted to like, if you guys can go to the cube counting section or slide.
Cube counting slide.
So I think one thing I want to point out is that eventually you'll notice patterns forming and like techniques, like Don said, for each section of the PAT. One of them that I wanted to point out is like, you're going to notice that certain cubes, for instance, like for both of these questions or diagrams, the very top one has 5 sides. That's going to be the case every single time because that's how it sits. And you just like have to like recognize that, okay, there's at least a 1 5 side cube, right? So that when that question pops up, boom, you answer right away. The other thing too that I want to recommend is that eventually you get into the pattern of timing yourself during the PAT practice. So one thing that I did was for each section, I knew exactly how fast I had to complete it in order to stay on pace for the PAT. The PAT is, 90 questions in 60 minutes. You have to fly through. That's like 45 seconds or so per question, right? So you really want to be efficient with your time and not waste it. So for instance, when they talk about the rock question for the keyhole, don't waste your time on those kind of questions. Just guess and move on.
There's only a few usually and like not worth it.
Yeah. So for instance, for me, like ankle raking, I sucked at it. I got about 7 out of 15 each time. Sometimes I got 10. So my thing was like, I'm gonna be as fast as possible. So that way on certain sections that I can guarantee I get 15 out of 15, I'm gonna do that. Like for instance, cube counting, hole punch, those should be like knock out of the park every single time. And then if you give yourself enough time later for other sections, you should be able to like reason through those and get high scores on those as well.
Yeah, just common theme is just a lot of repetition. You can make the plan based on what you're comfortable with, but just be sure that the common principles are applied, like repetition and going over the wrong answers, having a good like routine, and be very honest with your understanding of the material. Like don't just overlook an answer because you got it right if you don't fully understand that question. Yeah, I mean, okay, well, great. Kevin, thanks for all the advice. All right, our next one is personal statement.
Yeah, personal statement.
Yeah.
Circulars, letters of rec, and all that other kind of miscellaneous stuff.
Yeah, our next one will be basically personal statement and everything else, like leadership, letters of rec, extracurricular activities, volunteering, shadowing. So we'll cover all that. Please come.
It'll be a really good one.
Yeah, Elizabeth's gonna speak there, so yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you guys.
Have a good rest of your Wednesday night.
Stay safe.